Dang it. Okay, maybe if I do something like this. Okay, so you guys are gonna have to just be tilted like this because I started this live broadcast and it immediately told me that I couldn't film unless I was oriented a different way, and I'm charging and all that stuff. So don't take me not showing my face as anything more than it is. I'm sitting down and I'm doing my makeup. Um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing off camera. I wanted to make this video out of transparency because I'm very aware of the fact that some of you guys only follow me on certain platforms. And I wanted to talk about this in case people on here decided to shift change their mind about supporting me on here, basically. Because I just believe in keeping everybody informed and letting everybody know and all that stuff and all that jazz. And I'm going to talk about absolutely everything in this video. So there's going to be a lot of me talking about the actual incident. Then there's going to be me talking about my feelings about it. Then there's going to be me talking about the thought around it. I've talked about this several times on social media, and frankly, I'm kind of done talking about it. I've already made a video directly to the person that was impacted by this. I'm still waiting to hear back from them in terms of whether or not they want to see it. But basically what I'm saying is this is definitely a subject that I think this will be the last time I talk about it. And I felt a responsibility to talk to you guys about it just because of what it is, right? So I'll just tell you guys exactly what happened. I was on Twitter procrastinating as I do. Those of you guys who do follow me on Twitter know that I tend to spend way too much time on there procrastinating and bullshitting and, not getting my work done. And in my feed, there was this post. It's really warm in here, sorry. In my feed, there was this post from this person who a lot of people in my feed that I was following were responding to as though they were a transphobic troll. This person made a post that was like, being trans is the worst thing ever, shut up ugly, right? That's not exactly how it was. It was done in a very, and this should have been a giveaway, young, cutesy, sort of format. So I should have read it more correctly, but I saw that post and I did what I usually do, which is pop up and say, actually, being trans is fucking awesome. Stop being a fucking hipster, right? Because I felt like the post was a post by a troll. And those of you guys who follow me on Twitter know that my way of responding to trolls is at times quite edgy, so to speak. I do have a dark sense of humor. I have a dark sense of, a lot of things. And often my responses to trolls are terrible. And reading this person as a troll, I left that comment, really initially trying to be quite positive, right? Then the person responded back with this long, detailed post about how they were going to kill themselves. And my reaction to that was, I said, put me in the will, kid. That's what I said. Now, I'm not going to explain everything behind that because, to be honest with you, at the end of the day, this is something I should never have said. I mean, troll or not, this is just something I didn't need to say, didn't have to say, but I said anyway, right? And for that, I feel absolutely fucking terrible because I found out that the person was not a troll. They were a trans person truly expressing their anger at being transgender. Now, when I recognized my fuck up, I felt absolutely fucking terrible because, I've been a suicidal trans teenager. I've been a suicidal trans teenager who vents their suicidal ideations on the internet. That has been me. I have been there, and I absolutely hate the fact that I said anything that could even be construed as kill yourself, And while I definitely think that, put me in the will is very different from saying kill yourself, there's really not, it's not a huge distinction. And so the people who are saying that I said that, I don't, it's not really worth splitting hairs over whether or not I explicitly said that or not. It was something I shouldn't have said, and the sentiment was still sort of there, And so this has led to a huge fallout, and the reason why I wanted to bring it to you guys is for that reason. Obviously, telling you guys about this stuff is not great for me, but I would rather you guys be very aware of all the stuff that you're supporting and things like that than let this just sort of be a thing that flies under the radar that you guys don't hear about. I would feel terrible if you continue to support me and I said something like that you found was repulsive, and it is your right to know that, I feel. So that's what happened. And of course, people like Blair White have jumped on this and, done their typical, oh, look what this great trans activist is saying and doing. And that's been a whole clusterfuck. And I've been dealing with that all day. And I frankly feel fucking terrible because I know that what I said was wrong. I apologize several times, but I've been dogpiled. I'm getting a bunch of people. And, look, I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm used to it. I'm used to especially Blair White specifically going after every little thing I say that could be construed as problematic, even though all she does is do problematic shit, right? I'm very aware of that, super understanding of it, not totally shocked that, she did that, right? So I wanted to collect my thoughts and have do a personal apology to the person, because again, my immediate reaction when I said that and found out that the person was not a troll was I felt terrible. I felt absolutely fucking terrible to have ever said something to a person that I know back then in that space and time would have felt terrible to me. I felt really, really bad. But of course, the internet doesn't work that way. They needed to have a public mea culpa. And I have a lot of sort of thoughts about so-called cancel culture. On one hand, I think that a lot of people talk about when it comes to cancel culture just isn't real. On the other hand, I think call-out culture is definitely a thing. And what stuck with me was just the fact that I've apologized. I said that it was wrong very explicitly. I didn't defend what I said, other than saying that my reason for saying that was that I thought that they were a troll. But I always ended with, it was wrong, I fucked up, I said this, and I said this, I'm not going to deny things that I've said, but what gets me a bit is just the fact that people jump on it the way they do. Someone like Blair White spends large portions of their time being incredibly fucking, transphobic, saying things that are very hurtful to the trans community, very hurtful specifically to trans teenagers, right? And instead of, her getting all the shit for, she gets shit, but, instead of her being consistent and not giving a fuck about trans teenagers, she has to jump on this shit because she has some bizarre vendetta against me. Now, some of you guys know, because you've been following me on here long enough, you know that one of the best things I did was take that year off of YouTube. Now, it was not the best thing for me financially, but mentally it was. And I know that had this happened years ago, this would have impacted me in a much, 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 much different way. I would have been very afraid of Blair White and very nervous about her. But I see her as the grifter that she is. And my frustration with this is that it seems like people don't care about how hurt the trans person in question is as much as they feel excited at calling me out. It's a very exciting thing, and I've done that. I've been in that position where I'm calling somebody out and how exciting it is for me to do so. That's exactly the sort of shit that I tried to get away from, which is why I made my video about call-out culture, because knowing what Blair White's politics are, I know she doesn't care about transgender youth. I know that she does not give a fuck, right? But here she is pretending that she does because it gives her points. And to me, that's so sick. Because the reality is that trans suicide is fucking terrible. And that, I shouldn't have said that, and I shouldn't have said that for that reason, right? But it's sick to me that people are going to latch on once again, because what happens a lot of times with me is people will latch on to the edgy shit that I say to trolls. Now, obviously, in this case, this person was not a troll, and so I'm not necessarily upset that people are calling me out for it. But what I am sort of frustrated with is how much I know these people are pretending. These people do not care about trans youth. They don't care about making life easier for trans kids. They don't care about fighting against suicide for transgender youth. In fact, they pull up suicide rates of trans people to argue against transgenderism, in quotations, right? That's who these fucking people are. These are not people who give a fuck about trans youth, okay? So it's sickening to me that people latch onto it for that reason. But I will say that there's a valid reason to criticize me, which is, again, why I wanted to share this with you. So, you know, I have my own reasons behind my responses. You know, I have been in several abusive relationships where the person in question has threatened to kill themselves. Some of you know, because you followed my videos long enough to know this, that when I shaved my head in 2012, that was because I was in an abusive relationship where the person that I was with threatened to kill themselves. And that drove me up the wall so much. I had a complete mental breakdown, and I felt like I had to cut my hair. That's how deeply this shit fucks with me, right? That's how deeply that shit fucks with me. Now, what I'm coming out of this with understanding, because my reaction of, you know, will put me in the will, is the response that I now give to people who try to make me feel like I'm responsible for their suicide if they commit it. Now, I've never dated a person who's actually committed suicide. I've dated a handful of people who have threatened to kill themselves. And with time, I've come to recognize that this is an abusive tactic. It's a manipulation tactic. It's incredibly fucking shitty. It's incredibly fucking terrible. And it really shouldn't be something that people do. But it's taken me a really long time to recognize that and to see that for what that is, right? So now when people do that to me, I very much just let them say that and let it go. I've talked about this on Twitter, but I haven't talked to you guys about it yet, at least I don't think. But when I was at VidCon, I was at the hotel bar, and Boogie walked up to me, and my initial reaction when I saw Boogie was, you know, he looked great. He was walking around. He wasn't in his wheelchair. I thought that was really fucking awesome, that he was up there and doing it and mobile and all that stuff. But what he ended up doing was telling me that he was planning on killing himself soon, and that one of the reasons why he was going to do that was that I was liking tweets that were criticizing him. Now, my reaction to him saying this to me was to smile and to let him talk and to let him, you know, have his little moment. But I wasn't going to ever for a second walk away from that feeling like I was responsible for his suicide. That's just not who I am and what I'm going to do. I'm not going to fall for it anymore. And so I eventually had to get pulled away from a YouTuber. I'm not going to say who because I don't want to bring her into this, but she had to pull me away, and several people saw it, and I talked about it on Twitter when it happened, but I was being very, very vague. But it was a recent example of people trying to do that to me, and the reason I talked about it was because, you know, I don't respond positively to that shit. You know, when people tell me they're going to kill themselves because of me, I now understand that that's a very fucked up manipulative thing to do. And so I have a trauma response to that I put on this person, again, not knowing that this person was an actual trans teenager reaching out in pain, right? And so I definitely had this reaction, and in my sort of decompressing after the situation and really thinking about that reaction and having that reaction to that kid, I recognize, you know, I have my own reactions to that shit because of my own experiences, but there's really no reason why I should have put that on that person, even if they were a troll. There's really no reason why I should have put that on this person, right? And that's some shit that I have to deal with. That's some shit that I have to address. There was no reason for me to say that. There was no reason for me to say that. Right? So, you know, I have my shit that I'm dealing with, and that was one of the first sort of realizations I had when I was thinking about how wrong I was for saying what I said. Another realization was that this was a person who was screaming out in pain, essentially, talking about, you know, how terrible their life was as a trans person. And instead of believing that person's perspective, instead of, you know, validating it and saying that, you know, they had a reason to feel that way, it was easier for me to believe that this person was a troll. It was easier for me to believe that this person was a troll than to respect that they felt that way and reinforce that that feeling was valid, that that feeling was identifiable. Now, of course, my default when someone says, you know, that being trans sucks is to, you know, point out the fact that I've been a suicidal trans teenager who at one point in time did not want to live, right? And I got through it, and I'm now fairly indifferent to my transness. And I live a fairly happy life that's still complicated in some ways by my transgender status, but in so many ways isn't, right? I'm doing my eyeliner real quickly. Sorry. So yeah, I should have been able to revere this person's feelings instead of, you know, chiming in and saying what I said, period. You know, but also shouldn't have said anything to begin with. You know, so that's kind of what I kind of recognize. And like I said, I did make a video sort of saying basically everything I just said to that person. And if they get back to me, I will send it to them. But as of now, that is not the case. One sec. So I learned from that, and I learned that, you know, people should be able to voice their pain, their anger. They should be able to say that stuff. They should be able to express themselves in that way. There's really no reason why they shouldn't, you know. So that's the thing, and I think I've covered it for the most part. I was wrong, and I very much understand that I was wrong. And I think that me saying that, even again to someone who was a troll, points at an issue that I still have with that sort of thing. I mean, I have trauma when it comes to that sort of shit. I don't respond positively to people who blindside me with threats of suicide. I don't. It is not a way, it's not the best way to get me to respond positively. It just truly isn't. You know, and of course I responded that way thinking this was a troll. I didn't respond that way thinking it was a real person. But again, I shouldn't have read a trans person complaining about being trans and instantly thought, oh, this clearly has to be a troll because being transgender is amazing. Because it's not. It's hard. It's very, very, very complicated. You know? So, I wanted to share that with you guys. I wanted to tell you guys about it. I'm going to probably bitch and moan about other shit throughout this video, but if you wanted to know the basics of what happened, there it is. You can do with that what you want. I am mostly invested in the person who I said the thing to actually having a feeling about it. I'm not personally invested in whether or not everyone at large forgives me. Right. And that's been part of the problem is there's a ton of people who were calling me out and saying this and saying that. How dare you say this? How dare you do that? Da 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 da. And it's not that I don't think they should be able to do that. It's more that I feel like that is very incongruent to a, let's apologize. Like, do you want an apology or do you want me to grovel? And the reason why, I know Blair White is jumping on this shit is because she wants to get rid of me. She wants me to stop making videos. She wants me to stop making content. And what I guess I wish people understood was the best way to get me to not make content anymore is to not respond to what I'm posting. Because the more people tell me that, the more I get the impression that people want me to stop making content, the more content I'm going to make. That's just how the fuck it is. And unfortunately, when it comes to this, Blair White has decent ground to stand on. I said something I shouldn't have said to somebody who was vulnerable. And I, again, feel absolutely fucking terrible about that. Right? My frustration, honestly, is that none of these people truly do seem concerned with whether or not, I actually am sorry. It does not matter. I'm canceled, period. And for me, that's a lot. I don't, there's a part of me so here's the problem that I have. And I said this privately on my personal pages today. I'm a very empathetic person. And I know that's funny for me to say as someone who said that shit to a stranger, period. But I'm a very empathetic person. And so sometimes what that means is that I get really wrapped up in how people feel. Not necessarily about me, but how they feel in general. I hate that there's people out there that think that I want a trans teenager to kill themselves, because I don't. And if I felt that way, I would definitely be able to, I would feel a little bit better about the whole thing. One of the things I said was that, I wish that I were the villain that people keep saying that I am, because I would hurt so much less for this stuff. I wish that I was just this person who organically told a trans teenager to kill themselves because, whatever the fuck, I wish that I was that person, because I would care so much less about actually hurting somebody. I would be able to move on with my day. I wouldn't be as immobilized by this as I've been today. It's been hard for me to do anything today because I've been so fucked up by the fact that I said that to an actual trans teenager. I wish I was this callous, terrible fucking person. But I'm not. And that's why I can't just sit and for example, I know, to me, Blair White posts shit and she never regrets anything she says. Blair White can say some racist shit, some transphobic shit, some sexist shit even. And I don't think she ever regrets or feels bad about the things she posts in the way that I do. Because I think our brains just work very differently when it comes to that. I think about the fact that I've hurt people. Now, there's one thing. It would be one thing if it's a bunch of men complaining about me criticizing men. It'd be one thing if a bunch of white people upset with me criticizing white supremacy. But this is a delicate trans person who had somebody very, relatively well known, essentially tell them to kill themselves. And that is something that I have a hard time sitting with, knowing that I was the person who did it, right? Blair White, I have no doubt, never feels that way about anything she ever fucking says. And so I wish that I were a person like her where I could just not care about this, where this shit just wouldn't bother me. The fact that I said this shit would be like, oh, no big deal. But it is a big fucking deal to me. I hurt somebody. One sec. Sorry. I hurt somebody, and the fact that I did that, it fucks with me. You know, it really fucks with me that I did something that hurt somebody, because that's not the person that I am. That's not who I've tried to be. That's not what I've tried to, express, But I'll be transparent with you guys. I've been a bully. I've said mean and cruel things to people. I've been a much worse person than I am today. And I've worked fairly hard to get past that. I've worked fairly hard to get through that. It's been a journey for me to change and become a different person. But I've been a far meaner, far crueler person. And part of me thinks that maybe like Blair White's whole vendetta against me, because clearly she has one. I don't think much of her, but clearly she thinks a lot of me. Maybe that comes from a time where I was a crueler, meaner person. And she sees how I've changed and thinks, oh, she's being fake. Maybe. That's definitely possible. I would argue maybe likely. Right? But that isn't me, that isn't my soul, and that isn't my heart. Right? What gets me is that there are people who believe it so easily that I am. And that's the thing about this that gets me. Again, I'm sitting over here thinking about how fucked up it is that I said that to a kid. And they're over there, rolling their hands together, being excited that they have a reason to cancel me. I'll be right back. I'm getting underwear. So being aware of that, it's been pretty frustrating. And this is when I'm going to, talk about some other shit because it's relevant. It's relevant to even this video where I'm telling people that if the things I said and did make you want to stop supporting me, then go ahead and stop supporting me. I want you to be aware of all the things that have happened, right? So here's the reality of the situation for me right now. Things have definitely been getting better. I've said that in previous videos. Things have definitely been getting better, and every month they're getting even more better, right? And I definitely feel like, in terms of my content, I'm on the right track. I'm getting close to being done with part 2 of my video series. I'm excited to work on part 3. I've got a bunch of other video essays that I'm planning. I'm still, we'll see how it goes after this, and talked about sponsorship shit. I definitely am in a pretty good spot in terms of my career. But if there's something that I've learned from this call out culture shit, is that stuff like this will stick with me forever. And the reality probably is at this point that I'm not going to be able to get any sort of speaking engagements after, in many people's view, and I guess in reality and practically, telling a trans teenager to kill themselves. That's just not going to happen for me. And so, yeah, the reality of where I'm at now is I don't really know where things are going. Because I understand, accept, and embrace that, any school that would see that has every reason not to want me to come and be their keynote, right? Why would they? How could I come and be somebody who speaks up against this shit if I said that a trans teenager should kill themselves, right? I don't feel that way, but I did say it. Where I am now is I need to be able to move out of this apartment. I'm paying too much. It's sucking my soul. And I think I'm greatly underestimating how hard it's going to be for me to find a new apartment. So while things have definitely been looking up for me, now I feel like things are kind of left in a really bad situation now. I'm gonna start getting rid of a lot of my stuff, because if I do end up in a situation where I don't have a place to live, I really don't want to have to lug all these things. And that's just me not trying to, I'm not saying that for sympathy, I'm not saying that for anyone to feel sorry for me. That's just kind of the reality of where we're at. Because right now, it's like I'm doing okay, and, as the months go on, I'm able to, the amount of money that I have after I pay my rent is getting higher and higher and higher. But shit's scary. Like, if I had to pay my rent right now, I couldn't. I'm literally waiting for Patreon to pay me out so that I can pay my rent. That's just where I'm at, if I have to pay my rent. I have a couple of weeks still, but if I that's right now when when rent is due, I have to wait for Patreon to pay me out. That's a reality. I have to pay my rent. And so I'm going to start getting ready for the possible inevitability that I won't have a place to live. Because really, realistically, if I had one college speaking date, right? If I had one college speaking date that paid me the full honorarium that I usually ask for, I would be able to move. I would be able to move without question. Right now, the way that it is, I'm going to be stuck here paying even more money because I can't afford to move. If I got just one, I'd be able to move. And that would mean that I would have way less costs, would rely on Patreon a lot less, and would finally be able to, survive, Right now I'm doing fine, but it's not great. I probably have more money in my bank account than other people do, but I'm still not doing amazing. So that's just where we're at this point. And this is not helping. I'm only mentioning that because I'm trying, on my Patreon, I try to be very transparent with you guys about money. And frankly, if I'm in a situation where, no one wants to hire me, that's my fault. I have no one to blame but myself. And I will say that, a frustration I've been having recently is, even when I've been thinking about getting jobs outside, I've ruined my fucking life. I'm very employable. I know I have a good heart. But I know that to a lot of people, even though I don't see myself as very radical, I am incredibly radical, and I'm a risk, and that's a sacrifice that I've made. And part of my frustration with this is how people are really trying to cancel me in that significant way, despite the fact that all I've ever done is advocate for trans children. I will say that I do not agree I will say that I should not have said that. I will say that I was wrong and I shouldn't have done it, and you know, it is what it is. But it does bother me quite a bit that and this goes back to other conversations I've had, even relating to the Jessica Yaniv bullshit, you know, that I can sit up and do all the work that I do and advocate for what I advocate for and advocate against what I advocate against, and people are still going to believe the absolute worst about me. You know, in so many ways, that's encouraged me to not give a fuck. You know, that's why I'm saying edgy shit on Twitter, because I recognize that I spend so much time trying to curate myself in such a nice way that I've given people, you know, this improper impression of me as a person who isn't edgy, you know, and doesn't say shit or doesn't, doesn't feel certain ways, you know. And I've been wanting to be more authentic and more real and more genuine, right? That's what I've been trying to do. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm held to a different standard. And I can't do what I'm doing and also have some sort of, you know, career. So I learned a lot of things from this whole situation, but one of the biggest ones I learned, I mean, aside from all the other suicide-related stuff, is that I need to be on Twitter less. I need to be on Twitter less. I need to watch who I'm responding to, and I need to ignore that little thing in the back of my head that says respond and post, you know. I shouldn't do that. Maybe that might mean I create a private Twitter where I'm following only people that I personally know, and that's just a good time for me, right? Maybe that's what that means. But ultimately, I butted into a conversation that I was not invited into. You know, I said some shit that I shouldn't have said, and now it's hurting me. And, you know, there's a lot of conversations that people have about how inaccessible certain YouTubers are. A lot of my Twitter is me just being open and real and just trying to be accessible and, you know, let people talk to me. But there is a benefit to drawing that line between myself as a YouTuber and you as a person. And I'm learning with time that I need to maintain that. So anyway, I feel like I said everything I need to say. I'm going to go. I'm only putting on makeup and going out because I can't be in my house all sad all day. So yeah, I wanted to be clear with you guys, tell you guys what happened so that you know and you can do with it what you want. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.